Here's a fact that will break your brain. Cleopatra, the queen of ancient Egypt, lived closer in time to the moon landing than to the construction of the pyramids. Read that again. The woman we picture ruling beneath those monuments never saw them as new. To Cleopatra, the pyramids were already ancient history, and yet she is closer in time to a man walking on the moon than to the people who built them. Here's why your brain gets this so catastrophically wrong. When you picture ancient Egypt, you see one thing: pyramids, pharaohs, Cleopatra. All of it together. One civilization, one era, one Egypt. But ancient Egypt lasted over 3,000 years. 3,000 years of pharaohs, dynasties, wars, collapses, and rebirths. And your brain collapsed all of it into a single postcard. The pyramids weren't built during Egyptian history. They were built at the beginning of recorded history. Full stop. Let's run the numbers. The Great Pyramid of Giza, 2560 BC, so early in human history that writing has only existed for 500 years. Greece doesn't exist. Rome won't exist for another 1,500 years. The wheel has been around for roughly 1,000. This is not Cleopatra's Egypt. This is a completely different world. Now jump forward 2,491 years. That's how old the pyramids were when Cleopatra was born. 2,491 years. That is longer than the entire gap between Cleopatra and right now, today, as you watch this video. When Cleopatra stood at Giza, she wasn't standing in the shadow of her civilization's greatest achievement. She was standing in front of ruins so old that nobody alive could tell her how they were built. She was a tourist. Now here's where the timeline breaks completely. Cleopatra died in 30 BC. From that moment to July 20th, 1969, the night Neil Armstrong stepped onto the surface of the moon, is 1,999 years. From the pyramids to Cleopatra, 2,491 years. Cleopatra is 500 years closer to the moon landing than to the pyramids. 500 years. That's the entire span of the Renaissance, the entire age of exploration, the entire history of the Americas from Columbus to today. That's how much closer Neil Armstrong is to Cleopatra than the pyramid builders are. And Cleopatra's world reflects that. She wasn't an Egyptian pharaoh in the old sense. She was ethnically Greek, a descendant of one of Alexander the Great's generals. She spoke 9 languages. Her allies were Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. Her world was Roman, Greek, Mediterranean, sophisticated, cosmopolitan, almost modern by comparison to the pyramid builders. The pyramid builders didn't have iron tools. They predated the Iron Age. They predated the Bronze Age in much of the world. They were so early in human history that we still genuinely don't know how they moved those stones. And we put them in the same mental category as Cleopatra, the same postcard, the same era, the same Egypt. They're not. The gap between them is the entire history of Western civilization. Here's the complete timeline. Hold it in your head. 2,560 BC, the Great Pyramid, the beginning of recorded history. 69 BC, Cleopatra is born. The pyramid is already older to her than she is to us. 30 BC, Cleopatra dies. Egypt becomes a Roman province. The pharaohs are over. 1969, Neil Armstrong walks on the moon, closer to Cleopatra than the pyramid builders are. One timeline, 3 moments, none of them where your brain put them. The next time you see a photograph of Cleopatra in front of the pyramids, remember, she's not standing in her own history. She's standing in something far older, something so ancient it was already a mystery to her. The pyramids are to Cleopatra what Cleopatra is to us. History was lying to you, and now it can't anymore. Subscribe for more crazy stats from throughout history.